Welcome to the Build Better Blueprint, the podcast where we discuss the foundations of real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. Join Christian Cardamone as he shares insights, strategies, and stories that will empower you to level up your business, your lifestyle, and your impact. Let's build a better blueprint for success, starting now.
Hey, this is Christian Cardamone. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Build Better Blueprint. You got it. Anyways, today I'm going to take just a minute and tell you about the types of leases that we have here in North Carolina. The three main types that you'll see in a commercial setting are a full service, a version of a modified gross lease, and a net lease or a triple net lease. You might hear that vernacular being thrown around if people are talking about commercial real estate. And so I just wanted to give you a quick education on what those three are. And for the record, there's different variations of each one. And so this is not like a fully exhaustive description, but just enough to make you dangerous if you're having a beer with someone talking about it. So a full service lease is when you are the landlord and you're offering full service terms to any of your tenants. What that means is that you provide full service. So you will pay for all of the utilities and expenses associated with that property. Most of the time, these types of properties are executive suites or offices, something where a tenant can kind of plug and play. They'll show up, they'll make one payment per month to the landlord, and that includes rent, utilities, expenses, generally internet, janitorial, stuff like that, and then also all the maintenance and stuff like that that goes along with the property or the space that they're renting. So for the most part, again, those are generally relegated to small spaces or some sort of executive suite. The next kind of in between is a gross lease or a modified gross lease, and that is where there's some elements of responsibility put on a tenant and then some elements of responsibility put on the landlord. Now, for the most part, it's based only on the expenses. And so in commercial real estate, the landlord is responsible generally, if you're using a state bar form versus some sort of proprietary document, the landlord's going to be responsible for the roof, the foundation, the walls, and that's about it. The tenants are going to be responsible for the glass, for the doors, for most of the infrastructure inside, the electrical and the plumbing fixtures, stuff like that. So in a modified gross situation, if we're talking about expenses, the tenants generally will pay for their utilities, power, water, sewer, trash, and they'll be responsible for maintenance on some level. However, the landlord may elect to cover their prorated shares of the property taxes and the insurance. Those are the two biggest expenses we see that stay on the landlord side in some sort of modified gross lease. So the next tier beyond that, where you have the least amount of involvement from the landlord and the most amount of exposure to the tenant, is a net lease or a triple net lease. And that really is a situation where the landlord rents you the property to the tenant, and for all intents and purposes, the tenant's responsible for all the expenses associated with the property. They're going to pay all the utilities. They're going to pay their prorated or the entire property tax bill and insurance bill for the building, depending on whether or not it's a freestanding structure or a condominium or something like that. And then they're going to be responsible for all of the maintenance and all of the lawn care, cleaning the gutters, landscape, the whole nine basically. Sometimes it can even come down to restriping the asphalt driveways, concrete, et cetera, et cetera. Depending on, again, whether it's proprietary landlord lease, those are the ones that sometimes are like 20, 30, 40 pages versus just a 12 to 14 page standard North Carolina commercial lease in a single tenant or multi-tenant facility. It's really important if you are a tenant or a landlord that you have a broker representing you in your best interest so they can help explain this to you and you can find out which is the best path for you. Here at Aloha Wilmington Commercial Property Management, when we are representing property owners that are landlords, obviously it's our job to represent the landlords in their best interest through the tenancy and the transaction. So we like to seek triple net leases as often as possible, because what that does is it pushes the lion's share of the expenses and the responsibility to the tenant. Now, this makes for much easier transactional bookkeeping for the landlord, and it helps arrive at a net operating income much quicker, if they're going to do some sort of valuation as well. So it's very important. If you are renting a property from us and you have a smaller space, generally it's probably going to be a full service lease, and some of the mid-grade stuff size-wise could be a modified gross, but generally if you're leasing the entire facility, a whole building, and it's going to be a long-term lease as well, we'll see triple net leases in most of those situations. I'd love the opportunity to talk with you. if you own commercial real estate or you're looking to rent some commercial real estate, and we could talk through it. I could give you some information, some tips, some pointers, and obviously at Aloha, we are able to represent you in your best interest through the transactions, and we'd love to be your partner in commercial real estate. So thanks for tuning in. This has been the Build Better Blueprint, and this is Christian Cardamone signing off.
That's it, folks. That's our show. Thanks as always for listening. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to our channel so you are up to date with the latest episodes. Feel free to share with your friends and keep up the great work. You are on the right path. See you at the top.